The first time they saw Ethan Caldwell's new tractor, they didn't even try to hide it. The laughter came quick. Not loud, but sharp enough. It happened at the edge of Miller's supply yard, where farmers gathered more out of habit than necessity. Coffee in hand, boots dusted with dry soil, eyes always scanning what someone else had bought, fixed or broken. Ethan pulled in just after sunrise. His truck rolled slow, towing a flatbed. And on that flatbed sat a smaller, older Massey Ferguson. Not polished, not impressive, not even close to the size of the machines most of them ran now. The red paint had dulled under years of sun. The edges showed wear. The tires were solid but clearly not new. It looked like something that belonged to another time, another way of farming. Which is exactly why the comments started. "You downsizing or giving up?" someone called out. A few chuckles followed. Ethan stepped out of the truck without reacting. Same calm posture. Same quiet way of moving. He didn't rush to defend himself, didn't try to explain. He just unhooked the trailer. "You planning to plow with that?" Another man added. "Or just park it for decoration?" More laughter. Ethan walked up the ramp, loosened the chains, and climbed onto the Massey Ferguson. He turned the key. The engine didn't roar. It didn't try to impress. It came alive with a low, steady sound, simple, controlled, consistent. That alone made a few of them pause. But not enough to stop. "Give it a week," someone muttered. "They'll be back looking for a real tractor." Ethan drove it off the trailer and onto the gravel lot. The machine moved clean, no sputtering, no hesitation. Still, no one changed their minds. Because in their eyes, bigger was better, and Ethan had just gone smaller. He didn't stay long, didn't argue, didn't try to prove anything there. He just drove the Massey Ferguson back onto the trailer, secured it again, and left. The laughter followed him out of the yard, but it didn't follow him home. Ethan's farm sat just outside the main stretch of county road. Open land, practical layout, nothing wasted. He had built it carefully over the years. Not aggressively, not carelessly. Every decision had a reason. This one included. The truth was, he hadn't downsized because he couldn't keep up. He had downsized because he was tired of machines that couldn't. The previous harvest had made that clear. 2 of his larger tractors had failed under pressure, one with overheating issues, the other with transmission strain that cost him both time and money. Repairs had dragged. Costs had stacked. And when he needed consistency most, he got breakdowns instead. So this year, he changed his approach. Not bigger, not newer, better suited. That's what he had looked for. And that's what he believed he had found. The Massey Ferguson rolled off the trailer into his yard with a solid, grounded feel. Not light, not fragile, just balanced. Ethan walked around it slowly, checking, observing. No rush. He inspected the engine lines, the hitch system, the wear patterns along the frame. Everything told a story, and none of it pointed to neglect. This tractor had worked, but it had been taken care of. That mattered more than anything new. By mid-morning, he decided to test it. Not gently. He didn't believe in soft tests. He hitched it to one of his heavier implements, the same one that had pushed his larger tractor into overheating just weeks before, and climbed into the seat. He started the engine. Same steady tone. No fluctuation. No struggle. Ethan eased it forward. The first pull was where most machines revealed themselves. And the Massey Ferguson didn't hesitate. It leaned into the load. The engine dropped slightly in pitch, not weak, but engaged, and held that position as the tractor moved forward with a consistent pull. Ethan increased the load. The soil resisted. The machine answered. No sudden spikes. No erratic movement. Just steady traction and controlled force. He worked it longer. Harder. The sun climbed overhead as the test turned into actual work. Pass after pass. The tractor continued without complaint. No overheating. No drop in performance. No warning signs. Ethan finally shut it down after nearly 2 hours. He didn't smile, but he didn't need to. That evening, as he checked his fields, something stood out. The work was cleaner, more even, less strain on the soil. It wasn't just about power. It was about how that power was delivered. And the Massey Ferguson delivered it right. The next few days passed quietly. Ethan didn't go back to Miller's yard. Didn't update anyone. He just worked. The tractor became part of his routine, used where consistency mattered most, where precision outweighed brute force. And every time, it helped. By the time harvest season began approaching, the difference was already noticeable. His fields were ready, more than ready, while others were still adjusting, repairing, recalibrating. Ethan was ahead. But word travels fast in farming communities, especially when something doesn't add up. It started small. A truck slowing down near his property. A glance toward the fields. Then another the next day. And then, visitors. The same men who had laughed at Miller's yard showed up again. Different tone this time. Less noise. More observation. They leaned on the fence as Ethan worked the Massey Ferguson through a tougher section of land. No jokes. No comments. Just watching. One of them finally spoke. That the same tractor? Ethan nodded once, not stopping. They watched longer. Long enough to see what mattered. The machine wasn't struggling. Wasn't forcing its way through the soil. It was moving with it. Controlled. Efficient. The kind of performance that didn't draw attention at first, but became impossible to ignore. Harvest arrived sooner than expected. And with it, pressure. The kind that tested everything. Machines. Timing. Decisions. Across the county, engines fired up before sunrise. Fields buzzed with activity. And almost immediately, problems started. One tractor stalled under load. Another overheated before noon. A third broke down halfway through a field that needed to be cleared before incoming weather. It wasn't unusual, but it was happening faster than expected. More frequently, and at the worst possible time. Ethan started his day the same way he always did. No rush. No panic. He climbed into the Massey Ferguson, turned the key, and let the engine settle into that same steady rhythm. Then he drove into the field. Load after load. It held. Hour after hour. It held. No overheating. No hesitation. No loss of power. While other farms slowed down, Ethan kept moving. By midday, the difference became obvious. By afternoon, it became undeniable. And by evening, it became something no one could ignore anymore. Because across multiple fields, machines were stopping, failing, breaking under pressure. And on Ethan Caldwell's land, the smallest tractor anyone had laughed at, was still running. By late afternoon, the county had slowed to a crawl. Not by choice. By failure. One machine sat dead in the middle of a field 2 miles north, pit open, tools scattered, the owner pacing in tight circles. Another had been hauled back toward a shed before noon, steam still rising from its engine. A third had simply refused to start again after a hard pull, like something inside it had decided it was done. Harvest didn't wait for repairs. It didn't pause for frustration. And the weather coming in from the west wasn't going to give anyone extra time. Dark clouds had already started stacking low on the horizon. The kind that didn't bluff. The kind that meant you finished now. Where you didn't finish at all. Ethan saw them too. He didn't ignore them. But he didn't rush either. He had learned that rushing the wrong machine only made things worse. Instead, he kept his pace steady. Load by load. Row by row. The Massey Ferguson moved through the field with the same quiet consistency it had shown from the first day. The engine held its tone. The temperature stayed stable. The traction stayed controlled, even as the soil shifted slightly under the weight of repeated passes. Nothing dramatic. Nothing flashy. Just work. And that was exactly what the others were missing. Near the fence line, a pickup truck pulled up fast, gravel scattering under its tires. Carl stepped out, his movements quicker than usual, tension clear in the way he shut the door harder than necessary. He didn't call out right away. He just stood there, watching the red tractor move across the field like it had no idea anything was wrong anywhere else. Ethan finished his pass before turning toward him. He didn't shut the engine off this time. Just let it idle. Carl walked closer, eyes still locked on the machine. "I've got 2 down," he said, voice tight. "One won't start. The other's overheating before it hits half load." Ethan listened, didn't interrupt. Carl exhaled slowly, glancing toward the darkening sky. Storms coming faster than they said. Ethan nodded once. He had already accounted for that. Carl hesitated, then finally said it. "I need to get through at least another section before that hits." There was no pride in his voice now. No competition. Just urgency. Ethan looked out over his own field, then back at Carl. "How much left?" he asked. Carl gestured toward the road. 2 main stretches. Heavy ground. Ethan thought for a moment. Not long. Then he eased the Massey Ferguson forward slightly, repositioning it. "Ring your crew," he said. "We'll run it through." Carl blinked once, surprised, not at the offer, but at how simply it was given. "You sure?" Ethan didn't look at him again. He just nodded toward the field. Fuel's full. That was enough. Within 20 minutes, Carl's crew had arrived. Trucks lined the edge of the field, Men moving quicker now, not wasting time on conversation. The Massey Ferguson didn't change. Same steady idle. Same quiet readiness. Ethan stayed in the seat for the first run, guiding the machine into the heavier section Carl had pointed out. The soil there was worse than his own. Thicker, uneven in patches where previous attempts had failed. He lowered the implement. Pushed forward. The tractor responded the same way it always had. It leaned into the load, held its balance, and moved. Behind him, the ground broke clean. Even. No stalling. No slipping. Just controlled force doing exactly what it needed to do. Carl watched from the side, arms crossed tight. Not skeptical anymore, but focused in a different way. Measuring. Understanding. After the first pass, Ethan stopped and stepped down. He motioned toward one of Carl's men. "You run it," he said. The man hesitated, glancing at Carl. Carl gave a short nod. "Go." The man climbed into the seat, adjusted himself, and started forward again. At first, he pushed too hard. The engine dropped slightly. Ethan raised a hand. "Ease it. Let it work." The man adjusted. And then he felt it. That balance. That steady pull that didn't need to be forced. From there, the machine did the rest. Pass after pass, they worked through Carl's field. The sky darkened. Wind picked up. Dust shifted across the ground in thin waves. But the Massey Ferguson kept going. No overheating. No hesitation. No sign that it was reaching any kind of limit. By the time the first low roll of thunder sounded in the distance, they were finishing the last stretch. The final pass cut through clean. The implement lifted. And the field was done. Not partially. Not barely. Done right. The first drops of rain hit moments later. Slow at first. Then heavier. Men moved quickly now, securing equipment, heading back toward trucks, engines starting as the storm began to settle over the land. Carl stood still for a moment longer, looking at the finished field, then at the tractor. Ethan walked over, wiping his hands on a cloth. Neither of them spoke right away. They didn't need to. Carl finally let out a breath, long and steady. "I should have known better," he said quietly. Ethan shook his head once. "No," he replied. "You just looked at the wrong things." Carl gave a small nod, because he understood exactly what that meant now. It wasn't about size. It wasn't about how new something looked. It wasn't about what everyone else was buying. It was about whether it could do the job, when it mattered most. The storm settled in fully after that. Rain swept across the fields, soaking the soil, ending any remaining work for the day. But the difference had already been made. The fields that were finished, stayed finished, and the ones that weren't would have to wait. Over the next few days, the story moved through the county. Not exaggerated. Not dramatic. Just clear. Machines had failed. One hadn't. And it hadn't just survived. It had carried more than its share. Ethan didn't talk about it. Didn't return to Miller's yard to prove a point. He didn't need to. Because the next time he drove past, the same men who had laughed before didn't say anything at all. They just watched. Eyes following the Massey Ferguson on the trailer behind him. Not with amusement. Not with doubt. But with something quieter. Respect. Back on his farm, Ethan parked the tractor near the barn as the sun broke through after the storm, casting light across the wet ground. The red paint still looked worn. Still looked small compared to the machines around it. Nothing about it had changed on the outside. But that didn't matter. Because now, everyone knew what it could do. Ethan shut the engine off and stepped down. The farm was quiet again. Steady. Working. Just the way he preferred it. And sitting there beside the barn, the tractor that had been laughed at, had outlasted everything that had tried to prove it wrong. Without noise. Without failure. Just by doing the work better than anyone expected.